Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome to Community Conversations. So this is an opportunity for you, the community, to hear from contributors in the internet computer ecosystem, as well as ask them questions live. So today it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Ian Utile, the co-producer of the largest NFT conference in the world, NFTNYC. Please give him a warm welcome and thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I am a huge fan of you, Liz. What you do hosting this, I'm like, wow, she is so good. I should stop interviewing people and doing online stuff.
Oh, you are
Liz is the new standard.
Too kind.
Liz is the new standard. I'm like the clown, and you're like the queen.
Oh my
of these
God.
types of interviews.
That is far too kind. I actually feel the same way about you when you host all of these interviews for NFT.NYC. You are so natural at it. You do an amazing job. So, Ian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us your story. How'd you become entrenched in the crypto world? How did it come about that you became co-producer of this amazing event?
Yeah. So, I'm on my seventh company right now called Attention Live, and maybe we'll touch on that in a bit. And Attention Live and one of our strategic partners was .cred, Jody Rich and Cameron Bale. And so they started speaking at one of my conferences that I did inside Twitter's headquarters called The Future of Blockchain. And then they came to me with this idea of NFT.NYC. They'd already talked to Devin and Alex at OpenSea. So the four of them, like, we're going to do this thing. And I often make this joke. I'm like, I don't operate anything. I don't administrate anything. I don't really make any decisions. I'm like the front man to the band that doesn't play any instruments or write any songs. I'm just like the friendly guy with NFT.NYC. I interview everybody leading up to the event. I'll MC the stage. I'll speak, which I certainly enjoy. And for me, it's more about being a part of the community and putting courage in people's souls, right? Encouraging these startups or encouraging investors to come and to really consider helping to perpetuate the success of this industry. And the first few years was a grind, right? When we started talking about this in 2018 and going into launching our first one February 2019, it was just a really fresh environment. Everybody knew each other. And now, obviously, it has blossomed, and we've sold over 5,000 tickets. We have 600 speakers, and so it's going to be
That's
a
amazing.
great event. Yeah,
that is amazing. Fun. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you guys released so many waves of tickets for NFT.NYC. The demand is basically insatiable. Like, even right now on Twitter, people are like, "Where can I get secondhand tickets?" And I'm like, "Sorry, guys, like." You should have like not missed the boat, I guess. Like it's just been like crazy, the anticipation that I'm seeing online for the event. So Ian, I am curious to hear your opinion on this. So no matter how you see it, NFTs can be quite divisive because I think they're dominating headlines at the moment. They have become a widespread cultural phenomenon. So even people who don't work in crypto, don't work in tech, are now familiar with this now household term. And, just today I saw in the news that Sotheby's set a record for a Bored Ape sale at $3.4 million, but that wasn't even the top sale from the auction, which was a rare Pepe NFT, which sold for $3.65 million. So I would love to hear your opinion, Ian, on what do you think the role is for main players of the traditional art world, like Sotheby's and Christie's, when it comes to NFTs?
Well, usually I wouldn't really speak outside my lane, and I haven't been involved in the main art world for a long time, but I do have experience because I did help an artist that painted 20,000 paintings. This is a long time ago. And so I have some insight in terms of his experience being in galleries and selling paintings for $100,000 and then going into poverty because he didn't sell enough paintings and pulled away, and the ebbs and flows of an artist's lifestyle. And one of the things that he said to me consistently, and I kind of grew up with him, he was like Uncle Dwayne, but he was an artist named Dwayne Armstrong. And I helped revitalize his career about 15 years, 20 years ago. And he said to me how angry he always was when he'd think about he's going to be famous when he's dead. It's like, I made 20,000 paintings, doesn't matter how many I sell or what I do or how many prints or lithographs or mugs or puzzles I make. I know that nobody's going to know my name until I'm dead. And it just made him so sad that he could never break through the noise. So just from a human perspective, just like being an artist that creates first for the desire to be a creator and then shares that creation, ideally being compensated fairly for what they create so that they can continue to have a sustainable business. So when I think about Dwayne, Uncle Dwayne, and I think about him and revitalizing his art career, when I was younger, I think, gosh, what would it be like for him to have had NFTs as an option? Like, how might that have impacted his legacy? How might that have impacted the ability to structure a trust with secondary royalties for his children and his grandchildren? So I don't just think like, oh, this is so disruptive in the traditional art market, or, oh, the artists that, are used to certain methods, like this is completely grinding them and they feel really angry about it. It's like, okay, time out, everybody. Like, let's not money first, let's first human. So what's it like for an artist to be someone that creates as many as 20,000 original oil paintings, right? Huge paintings, 6x9s. I mean, just massive producer. And for him to just basically, he wakes up in the morning and one of the thoughts in his head is, nobody's going to know nobody's really going to celebrate me till I'm dead. And he goes to bed at night and he thinks, why can't I break through the noise no matter how many paintings I do? And so when I think about the shift with NFTs, I think about it from a human perspective before a financial or a business perspective, that this is an opportunity for men and women like my friend Dwayne that are massive producers that have given their life to nothing but the craft of being an artist to express who they are and bring joy and sorrow, because art does all sorts of emotional things to us, to the world, and the ability for him to potentially break through the noise, be known, be celebrated, and for him to really leave something of a legacy that he can see build in his lifetime. So I feel that if the conversation is changed from money, and if it's changed from business, and it begins to be talked about legacy, and it begins to be talked about the ability to have a community that you don't lose because you stopped painting, because you went into a melancholy state and weren't manically painting anymore.
Totally.
But you still have this ability to have a community. So I think of it in the human perspective before the other perspective, but obviously there's also financial reasons for us to drive this adoption forward.
Completely. And I don't know if you saw this documentary on Bob Ross that's available on Netflix, but it was very eye-opening, very, very powerful documentary in terms of how, for artists, their core skill set is, of course, the creation of beautiful art. But a lot of them, they may not have this kind of business savvy, which makes it easy, I think, for people who are manipulative to really take advantage of that talent. So basically, for those who haven't seen the documentary, it's Bob Ross's son who appears, and he's basically like, I haven't seen a penny of any of the royalties because my dad signed a bad deal many decades back. And for him, it's not even about, the money necessarily, although I'm sure that doesn't hurt. It's about the fact that this Ross name, like the family name, is legally now in the hands of a corporation that's like monetizing his dad without having any sort of like human connection with him. So I do think that the way in which the traditional art world is set up is very particular, and it's not necessarily to the benefit of the artist. So Ian, I just came back from this wonderful NFT conference in Prague called NF Castle, which you might have heard of. So essentially, it's hosted by this very old noble family in the Czech Republic called the House Lobkowicz. And fun fact, they were actually patrons of Ludwig van Beethoven back in the day. And if you actually visit the Lobkowicz Castle, which is part of the Prague Castle complex, you'll find like original first edition sheet music. You'll find a letter from Beethoven asking them for money, and so on and so forth. So something that really struck me as a parallel for how artist and creator relationships worked back in the day versus now is that back in the day, you really only had two ways of making money as an artist, as a musician, as a creator. Either you were employed by the church to write music for the church, to create art and sculpture for the church, or, and this is, speaking about Europe specifically, or secondly, there's a wealthy family that would hire you, commission paintings of their family members or to write music for special events and so on and so forth. If you fast forward to today, there really isn't that same patronage model anymore, right? It's like mostly artists, they have a portfolio and they work for big corporations, but I think that human connection is not there. And something that I think is so fascinating about NFTs is that it's in a way reintroduced this patronage model so that artists are free, I think, to focus on what they're most creatively driven by. Because if you talk to artists and musicians, which I'm sure you know a lot of, it's like they do a lot of stuff to put bread on the table. Like one of my friends is this incredibly talented jazz pianist. And do you know what he does for a living? It's not play jazz piano. He writes music for reality TV shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It's
Wow.
like, it's like, nothing wrong with that, of course, but it's not his like core sort of bread and butter, the thing that he wants to spend his life doing. So for you, with these new sort of monetization models with NFTs, what are you most excited about now? And what are you most excited about in terms of what's to come?
What am I most excited about now? Um, Finding out about IC, Internet Computer, and what the DFINITY Foundation has developed has been one of the most exciting things for me in my whole 4-year journey with NFTs, because I have all these visions of scaling and having billions of people on the Attention Life platform, creating NFTs in real time with their voice, podcasters, teachers, musicians. There's no ability for me to put that audio content on the chain. And now all of a sudden I find out, no, there is a real way to do that, not just to put audio content on chain, but to do it at scale. I often think of like really significant intellectual property, right? Like my friends at an organization called Biblica, they have one of the sacred scriptures, right? There's all these sacred scriptures, the Bible and the Quran, and they have one of them in 80 languages and 30 languages audio. They have always been worried that one day all the, their holy books are going to be burned. That idea, like what if they
Totally.
put it on
Like, what if it was
chain?
lost? Yeah. Right.
If they put it on, we've all seen the Book of Eli with Denzel Washington, right? He had to memorize the Bible in Braille. And so if we put it on chain, it can never be stopped. It can always be accessible to people. So when I think about like really significant culture transformative intellectual property, hence sacred scriptures of all kinds, I think about my goals and my visions of supporting people with them getting audio content through our system, creating NFTs at scale of no limit to the users, right? Billions of users, and be able to do it in a reasonable, affordable way. I had no model. So finding about an IC was really, really compelling to me. I'll share another one I got more insight on today. There is this new thing called NFTs, and it's basically a tie to OpenAI and GPT-3, which is like a open version of IBM Watson, right? Kind of like artificial intelligence. Well, they're creating these INFTs now, and these INFTs will allow basically creating personalities around the NFTs and letting people interact with them in a way that's going to feel like they build relationships. When I start thinking about that attached to the metaverse, very exciting. And the final one I'll say is when I see the development of some of the metaverses, I was early interviewing Harish from Decentraland. I was one of the first, to bring in Dirk from Upland or Sebastian from the Sandbox. Like I got to know these fellows and all the men and women that support that development early on. And I remember I'd tell my kids, I have 2 boys, 6 and 9, or no, they're 9 and 12 today, but they're 6 and 9 when I really got involved. I'm like, boys, you're playing Minecraft, but do you know what you're doing? All you're doing with your dozens of hours a week is you're building Microsoft's world. Every time you build a world, it might be fun, it might be free, but it's not yours. Why don't you come over to the Sandbox? Let's go over to Upland. Let's go to
Oh,
Decentraland.
that's so amazing.
Let's have you build their world because it's not theirs. It's a community that all understands that what you build is your own. It's your own intellectual property. You can break out pieces and sell it and be compensated for your energy. You can sell the whole thing because you get to be an old crusty guy that wears Chrome glasses like me, and you're not a little youthful kid anymore, and you don't want to play that game anymore, but you can still have value from it. You could hand it off to your kids, your great, 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 great grandkids that hundreds of years from now could understand who you were as a youthful architect. And so I think about like these developments of things I just found out more about today, like INFTs, or things that are driving my innovation in my mind and with our technical team, like IC, and what's going to happen with the ability to put all this content on chain, or just really personal, right? Like where this impacts my children, their peers, the kids they're growing up with, and their ability to own what they create and actually make a living from those creations.
That is so amazing what you just described, Ian. So you referenced attention.live. Do you want to explain to the audience what it is that you're working on and how they can get involved too?
Yeah, you can go to attn.live and you could sign up for our beta user test. We also are engaging with clients right now and partners. So attention.live has been, it's my life work. I just talked to David Lee at Samsung Next. He was talking about, the entrepreneurs that he gets most excited about are those that are doing their life's work. And I'm like on the side of that, I'm like, I'm doing my life's work. So Attention Live is my seventh company. And what we've created is pretty simple. It's just a media company, right? You put audio files through our system and we send audio files everywhere where people are at. All the social media sites, the YouTubes and the Twitters and the Facebooks, kind of like Restream does. We also send to the podcast networks, kind of like Anchor. So Spotify and Google Podcasts and iTunes. One thing that's unique about Attention Live is we also send the content to voice devices. So Amazon, Alexa, Google Assistant, Samsung Bixby. So we're just simply a media distribution software company, but we built our company as a DApp. And the goal was that we would have a voice interface that people could just talk to Alexa, talk to Assistant, talk to Siri or Cortana or whatever it is that you use. Talk to your voice device and say, open Attention Live, right? And it says, you want to listen or go live? I want to listen. Who do you want to listen to? Obviously, Liz. Who else would I want to listen to? Or they say, I want to go live. And they say, okay, what channels? All my channels. And then they go live and they start creating content as a teacher, as a musician, as a podcaster, whatever it is. They start creating content in real time live with their voice, and it goes everywhere where people are at. So that was the basic premise of Attention Live. My real goal was to tie it into the blockchain and to be able to create NFTs in real time against each of those pieces of content. Because in my mind, there's a big problem with intellectual property ownership and with compensation around audio content. I think Clubhouse was the greatest example of this. How many of us were on Clubhouse or Clubhouse's competitors, right? Twitter Spaces or Spotify Green Room. How many of us were on there giving our most brilliant ideas, sharing our most innovative, cutting edge things because it was just the right environment to be fiery and to be kind of like on the spur of the moment. And we're sharing all that. And you know what we got for it? Accolades and attention. We didn't get a recording. We didn't get a transcription. We certainly didn't get an NFT that protected that intellectual property and let us actually monetize that IP. So Attention Live is a super tool. And I'd like to think of it like, ideally, if we're graced, we'll eventually be known as the Gutenberg printing press of digital communications. Now, Gutenberg printing press was not the first printing press. It was just the first type form printing press. There were already printing presses around, and there's already people that make audio NFTs, and there's already media distribution companies. I mentioned Anchor and Restream. There's already people that have voice interface for applications. It's not like we're coming up with something that's totally never been done. We're just taking these things and putting it in, baking our cake that we think is the greatest tool to be able for people to create content at scale, monetize that content with no middlemen, build communities around that content. And we just feel like it could potentially unlock abundance with humanity, especially as we think about the 3 billion people in the world that don't have the internet, make less than $2 a day, don't speak English or any major language, aren't educated, don't know thumbs on glass, don't know fingers on a keyboard, don't care less about chains or wallets or keys. They don't care about any of that. But if we can make something very simple where they just talk to a watch or they talk to some glasses and they say, I know about cooking, I sing some songs, I know about some war stories of my ancestors. And what if they start using our tool or our competitors' tools in the future and they say, I'm going to share. And when I share, I'm going to create IP that protects what I said, the transcription, how I said it, the audio file, and then I can sell that to people that would want to collect that or leverage it. So I think with NFTs, it's not just an audio file, it's an audio file with rights, right? So we want to have NFTs that have some that would have commercial rights that are more limited, some that have non-commercial rights. So we've really thought through this in 4 years. As I said, it's my seventh company. My tech team has come with me from company to company to company, and every company we've built up to this point has led to this moment for this unbelievably ambitious vision that we have been working to manifest.
No, I absolutely love that. I think right now, most of the attention is on art-based, like physical, like visual arts-based NFTs, but certainly like music NFTs are the next big thing to arise. I've heard talks about people trying to organize like a concert for crypto, musical artists, maybe something you should consider for the next NFT NYC event. I think it'd be really fun to add like a music festival element to it. And already you have like the kind of demand and excitement and like definitely the energy is there. So, going back to NFT NYC, so talk to me about, how the event's structured, like what is the theme of everything? What is different about the cultural zeitgeist this year that has made NFTs and NFT NYC blow up as compared to previous years when you guys organized the event?
Well, everybody has their own opinion. So at best, I can share my opinion, which is probably less accurate than those, that are maybe a bit more tied into the space. I mean, so many people are so spun up on, their PFP projects and their flipping. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I often think I'm not a fan of the flipping and the modern kind of let's make a buck, because if you can't tell, I'm a little bit charismatic. And I have kind of a powerful personality. And if I was a bad guy, I'd be a cult leader. So I didn't get into
for your
crypto.
Honesty, man. I could see it.
I didn't get into crypto when it was booming. I didn't get into ICO publicly. I didn't talk about crypto and ICOs, nor do I talk about buying and flipping NFTs on OpenSea. And I don't, because I feel like it's gambling. It might be wise gambling. There might be people that are really thriving with this kind of gambling, but there's no telling that certainly all of these projects are going to actually have the long haul. I think those that will remain are those that have real utility, right? I think of our mutual friend, Abraham Gomez, what he's doing with Wild and West NFT on the IC chain. I look at some of the projects that I understand Tonic are working on your chain. And I look at the utility that is being used in these projects and the ways that they're really thinking through the long tail, not a project to make some money, but project to stack after project, for the good of the community. And those are the types of things that I'm more interested in. So as far as where things are at and how we got here in the zeitgeist moment, I will just honor, Metakoven when he bought people for $69 million. That was transformative.
Oh, yeah.
Revolutionary.
Amazing.
I remember walking with Mickey Maher, the head of partnerships at Dapper Labs at Consensus in 2019. And we're walking through Consensus. We did this walking interview, and he's telling me all about what Flow is going to be and all his vision and his goals for NBA. And I'm catching the vision, but to see Dapper execute Top Shot so well, and to see the impact of what happened and the athletes and the celebrities and the huge brands with intellectual property to really, really go for it. I think that is a really significant moment. I think when people like Gary Vaynerchuk jump in, and I appreciate that Gary jumped into Discord for a while. He interacted with people, he asked questions, he figured things out. And then he didn't just come in and become a voice or a cheerleader, but he actually built what I would consider a very long-term project. I would say that VFriends, what he did with VFriends, is a manifestation of what I would have wanted to do if I was doodling. I think it's a brilliant trajectory over the course of 100 years. And so I think when Gary jumped in and he kind of brought his community, the way that he told people how to get a MetaMask wallet, make sure they had ETH in their Coinbase account before he did the drop, the way he did kind of the Dutch auction where the price went down over time. So if they were hungry for it, they had to pay for it, but if they couldn't afford it, they had you get access to 3 conferences, all these different things that he did, I think were really, really powerful models. No, those are 3 of 3,333 things that led us to this moment. As far as NFTNYC, I don't want to discount Jody Rich. I don't want to discount Cameron Bale. I think there's so much to be said for leadership, humble, confident leadership. And I look at Alex and Devin, their role with OpenSea and NFTNYC. And I look at the co-founders of this event and the leadership decisions that they've made, the integrity that they've had, the way that they've dealt with adversity, the way they've dealt with slander, because that always will come in a decentralized fashion. If you like to shoot the person.
Whoa. You can't just drop things like that and not provide any examples for the audience. What do you mean by that?
Okay, I'll give you an example. OpenSea had an employee that did something that seemed nefarious, and I felt like they dealt with it with grace. They just moved past it. Jody and Cam, well, NFT.cred, their business that they do during the day, NFT.NYC is the hobby that we do at night.
Right. The day job, yeah.
Yeah. Well, NFT.cred is a development of what they've been doing for the world's largest brands for 10 years.
Mhm.
They've been doing radical things for brands around intellectual property and digital assets and crypto collectibles for a decade. Well, through that process, there's all sorts of expectations that get made, and then there's all sorts of demands that are made, and it's hard to
Sure.
meet people's expectations. So obviously there's going to be chitter chatter from time, and the way that they've been ducky, right? Just water off a duck's back, right? Their feet
Yeah,
are going a million miles
totally.
an hour into the water,
Right.
but they just seem chill on the outside. I think they have a lot to do with NFT.NYC. The way that they've dealt with 1,000 emails a day the last couple months,
Oof.
everybody is a celebrity, and everybody wants to speaking slot, everybody wants to be a sponsor. They
Oh,
all want all
absolutely.
these tickets. And I feel like NFT.NYC's success is not just the Beeple moment, not just the Gary
Mm.
V moment, not just, the Top Shot moment, although those are only 3 of thousands of moments. It does have a lot to do with good leadership, humble, confident leadership that's willing to listen, willing to be meek, but also willing to be firm and stern and assertive. And this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. So I put a lot of weight on the 4 co-founders of our event. And I think that's a big reason why we've been successful and will continue to be successful.
Oh, no doubt. I know from personal experience, event organization is one of those things where I think that when you haven't had experience doing that, it's like, oh, it's like really fun. It's like not, not really a job or anything. And it's like you're on the other side of it and you're like, oh, let me tell you, like this is a full-time job and then some. And it's super impressive to
Yeah.
hear that the leadership team behind NFT.NYC is doing this like on the side. So meaning you still have like your 9 to 5, realistically longer. And then after work, people have like families, right. And on top of that, they're organizing NFT.NYC. So is there any like particular speaker, any particular event that you're like super jazzed about to come next week?
Well, I'm excited about Iconic. You have an event on Tuesday night. I hope it's okay. I just said that.
Yeah, no. I just want people
yeah. I mean, we got it. We got it on the official NFT event page.
So I
figured it's okay to be public. I went on the Eventbrite page, and I got myself some tickets before they're gone.
That's amazing.
I'm excited about Iconic because I want to spend time with you and your team. I want to spend time with Bob and Steve and Steven and Iconic and Abraham and Hector and all of his guys. And I want to become more and more part of the IC community because there's something really unique about the technology, and there's something equally unique and sweet and attractive about the community that I found on Telegram and Discord and Signal and all these places where people are thriving.
People are amazing. And, like just major shout out to the people who are on this call right now. Like you people are the ones who are the heart and soul of the IC community. When I'm on Telegram, when I see you all on these community conversations, it's just like, honestly, I just feel like the luckiest person in the world sometimes to be able to do what I do and just be supported by such amazing people. And people who are like really on the cutting edge of what's to come and people who believe in this like nascent technology. I mean, it takes a lot, right? It's like a huge risk, I think, to build your career upon something that might not seem like 100% certain. But literally all the props to our community. We do have one of the best communities, I think. It's just like very, very caring, very, very lovely people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm happy to share a little bit about the Iconic art gallery.
You have my attention. I'm listening.
So, as is frequent in the space, there's a lot of like first times, right? Like for you guys, it's like first time, like I'm sure the first time organizing NFT.NYC versus organizing it this time around. And it's just a totally different beast, right? But you learn as you do it. And it's just like a wonderful experience. And you're like, where else could I be offered like these kinds of opportunities? So next week on Tuesday, November 2nd, we are organizing an NFT art exhibition called Iconic. So the idea here is that when you look at depictions of technology and humanity in the arts, like in films like The Matrix or Blade Runner or a Minority Report, or in shows like Ghost in the Shell, it's often this like very bleak dystopian look about how technology is used to control the populace, to surveil the population. But for me, the promise of a lot of these new emerging technologies like crypto, NFTs, DAOs, and so on and so forth is that they actually have the ability to enrich our lives, to bridge and connect humanity, to offer a way of making a living for people who might not otherwise have had ways to make a living. I mean, case in point, Axie Infinity, right? I just read this stat about how there are more Filipinos with Axie wallets than there are Filipinos with credit cards. I mean, just think about that. Just think about that. It's just like completely mind-boggling. So for me, I'm a techno optimist. You know, I'm really, really like, this is also like my life's work. You know, I'm in crypto. I'm literally forever going to be in crypto. I've been crypto pilled. So for me, it's like, how do we use this technology? Because technology is, you know, net neutral. It's a tool, like a knife, right? How do we use this technology and how do we have a net positive impact on society? How do we do good with this? So the art exhibition, just to summarize, it's like this very colorful, bold, you know, dynamic, full of life look at the potential of artists and putting them front and center and what is possible through technology and just like all of the optimism and hope that comes with that. So I think it's going to be a good time. You know, everyone should show up. I think one of my lovely team members has dropped the Eventbrite link into the chat here. So we're also additionally super, super excited to showcase a bunch of extremely talented artists on the IC. We have people from, you know, not only New York, LA, Miami, but also places like Istanbul, Japan, Singapore, Paris. We have this Parisian street artist that became famous a couple years back for doing these like illegal street exhibitions of Bitcoin in the form of a flower representing hope. He sold work on foundation.app in the 5 figures. Now he's going to be selling work on the IC. We have this wonderful artist from Istanbul who's done work for Burning Man in the past and just, you know, everything in between. So we're going to be showcasing these amazing artists and everyone will have the opportunity to also buy the art at the actual exhibit itself. On top of that, of course, we're going to be showcasing the amazing artwork of NFTs that are either already on the IC or in progress. So Wild and West, which was, I think, illustrated by an artist who's worked with Marvel before, Poke Studio Bots, where the artist behind Poke Studio Bots has done work for like major clients, has done work for video games, just has this like amazing, like this beautiful style. And again, just like a lot of other works of art and collections already available on the IC. So it's like so crazy to think about. I mean, we have been live, the ICA rather, for 5 or 6 months. And when you look at our ecosystem, obviously there are larger ecosystems, right? Like Ethereum's NFT ecosystem or Solana's. But if you look at where we're at, just relative in the timeline compared to where other projects were 5 or 6 months in, I mean, it's no comparison, right? So I am like I'm like a member of the ETH community, you know, I like contribute to like various DAOs, you know, I have Solana NFTs, you know, I am really like this person who believes in this multi-chain world. But I definitely do think that there's a little bit of like people don't know about the IC, like a little bit of like, they don't know what's coming, but you know, a couple months down the line, I think we're going to take the crypto world by storm. I think there's a lot of amazing things that are happening, a lot of talented people, a lot of good energy. And Ian, it's great that you recognize that so early.
Well, yay, 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 yay. You know, when you start talking about a hopeful perspective of the future, I don't believe in utopia, but I believe in an anti-dystopic future more than I do a dystopic future.
Right.
And, you know, I often get emotional. So, you know, I gotta hold my emotion together right now.
Hey, emotion is a human. I mean, it's like what it means to be human, right? Like,
okay, well then I just might cry. Our parents' generation really thrived in creating anti-dystopic entertainment and escapism, which manifested people's businesses religious institutions, educational institutions, media institutions. It manifested in them speaking about what good could come. And I'll give you a couple examples, like the Jetsons and
Oh
Star
yeah,
Trek.
totally.
These were total escapism, totally entertaining. It was stories that we were caught up in. But what were they? They were anti-dystopic pictures of what the future could be. Many people, I'm not a Trekkie. I love Star Wars. So you have to choose one of the two. I choose Star Wars. So, but many people don't know the thing for Star Trek that's important to understand. In Star Trek, the whole world was basically cared for in universal basic income. So nobody had any needs. They had housing, they had food, they had all their needs met. So now it comes down to, what are they going to do with their life? And Kirk wanted to be a captain. Well, what about the person that wanted to be a bartender on the Enterprise? Did the bartender look at Kirk and say, oh, you're my master, I'm your submissive servant? No, the bartender's like, I love making drinks for the captain. Did Kirk look at the bartender and be like, you're just a bartender, that's all you do is make drinks? No, he's like, oh, thank God I want to be the bartender, I need a drink. You see, the future vision that they had is, we're going to go and explore the ends of the universe. Why? Because we've taken care of humanity. We've gotten to the point with an anti-dystopic ability through technology to care for all living things. And now, what do you want to do, since you have the freedom to create, to teach, to learn, to explore the galaxies, making drinks, or being the captain? And when I think about this type of anti-dystopic, optimistic view of the future, I ask myself, where are the creatives that will dedicate themselves to the craft of telling anti-dystopic stories? Because although I find them entertaining, Black Mirror, Electric Dreams, Altered Carbon, Terminator, Blade Runner, on and on and on, I might escape my problems and give myself to a story. I might be entertained. My heart might beat fast. I might get inspired. Yeah. But ultimately, all it's doing is setting me up to have to fight this inclination that we are going toward a dystopic future that is definitely not a guarantee, nor is it likely. It is more likely we will go to an anti-dystopic future based on history and how things keep getting better and better and better for humanity in almost every area. Now, you can pick apart things, but ultimately, look at where we're at. You and I are on Zoom together. We have a community of people that are decentralized that have joined us right now. We're having this human connection, you and I, and people are part of this. What a elevated human experience that you and I are having right now. And it only can get better and better. We transition from Web 2 to Web 3. So I'm very, very excited about what could be. And I do believe that communities like IC and many other chains, and obviously I could talk about a lot of different blockchains I'm involved with or have been, but I'm talking to the community here. I know who you are. You love ICP and I do too. You're part of the 8-year game. Yeah. I'm like 8-year gang. You know, I'm all about it. And so I'm talking to you based on who you are and acknowledging the significance of this community, of this technology, of this vision, and the importance of every single one of you and every single one of us, including myself, manifesting and making this a reality, because these pursuits are the types of things that will be good for our children, their children, and many, 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 many generations to come, if the earth and humanity are graced with that in the future.
Definitely. And what you said just now about like people's basic needs being covered and them being free to pursue whatever it is they want to pursue, I think that's a very noble kind of thing, right? It's like, think about the human body, like, you know, the face has a function, your organs have a function, no one is better than the other. It's just they all form part of the cohesive whole. So something I wanted to ask you about too is, clearly with NFTs, there hasn't been like a winter yet, but what do you think is going to happen when that finally occurs?
Okay, well, I got my first job at a tech company in '98. My first ever tech thing was I sold a website for $316,000 in 1998. The type of website you could get for free today. And I was part of the tech bubble, and I was at an agency, one of the first digital agencies. And so when everything imploded in 2000, I remember asking myself, like, how did this happen? And then I remember people coming into our office and pitching us this idea. And, you know, you kept adding more and more and more zeros. And the bubble was that all the things that were being built and declared had no value. They had no community around it. They had no commitment around it. They had no finance around it. And it was all centralized around smoke and mirrors and snake oil salesmen and saleswomen. Okay, so I understand that. Oh, I look at the ICO bubble. Okay, well, a lot of people spun up ICO projects with no community first, no technology first, no ability to achieve the goals that they had. And so I understand the bubble bursting. But when I look at the NFT market, certainly there is a bubble in the sense that there's a lot of projects that people are being a part of, that the product, the NFT, the smart contract, the code that they are acquiring may not have value. But if the community stays the course, then even if that JPEG doesn't maintain the value they paid for it or go up in value, the fact that they're part of a community, that community can create value together in new paradigms. So I don't feel like there has to be an NFT bubble, but I was talking with Lou Kerner, one of the co-founders of Crypto Mondays a couple of days ago, and we were talking about crashes and booms, and crashes and booms. And he's like, one of the sad things is, like, you know, when it booms, everybody's in it, and then it crashes and they disappear. And he's like, where the hell did you go? Like, everything pendulum swings, everything booms and then crashes and then booms, and we can call it a bubble. I just think it's different with Web3. With a Web3 bubble based on NFTs, based on thousands of holders of a project, or especially if it's an NFT that has real usability, you know, real attributes, it's a receipt with true rights. I really feel like there's a long-term value with this stuff. And I feel optimistic about where we go from here. As far as if there's a bubble, I think the gamblers are the ones that get hurt. And unfortunately, the gamblers that brought others into the gambling of flipping NFTs are the ones that get hurt. But you know what? Everybody that goes in the casino, and everybody that scratches a lottery ticket, and everybody that goes and plays poker, like, hey, you know, you're gambling. You might make some money. You might not make some money. You might lose everything. And so hopefully people are investing into the NFT market with revenue that is disposable income, money they have to lose. Hopefully they're being smart and wise with how they're doing it. And I do think that if there's a bubble, it's the gamblers that face some difficulty of holding the bag and not having the value there. But I really think that those that are building are really going to do something of significance, you know, and it'll have long-term. Now, my opinion is not the truth. It's just what I'm feeling in the moment. So it doesn't mean that I'm declaring like, this is what I believe. I'm just saying, this is what I'm feeling in this moment, is that there's likely not a bubble, but if there is a bubble, it probably has to do with those that are buying to flip and that are really, and you know, whether you want to call it gambling or not, it doesn't matter to me. It ultimately is just a different approach to trying to make a quick buck. But as long as it's part of a community, and you're really bonded with that community, then even if those things lose value, the community can create new value, as I said a moment ago.
Yeah, what you said just completely resonated with me. And something that just struck me actually is that a key difference between DeFi and NFTs in terms of, you know, like flipping or whatever, trying to make a return, is that people often have like real emotional connections with their NFTs, right? That's why you see these like 10,000 generative PFP sort of NFTs take prominence, because people make them their avatars. That's like who they identify with. There have been these like beautiful communities that have formed and flourished around essentially a set of cartoon JPEGs. So actually there's a nice little parallel between what you said now with like the Star Trek story and what the Bored Ape Yacht Club lore is, where it's, you know, into the future, all of us have our basic needs taken care of through crypto. So a bunch of, you know, crypto whales, or they call them apes because they have aped into different tokens. A bunch of crypto apes are bored and they're like, what should we do? They're like, we just want to hang out with each other in the secret club in the Everglades. And that's like the whole story of Bored Ape Yacht Club. And to see how much they've grown since they've launched just a couple of months back Amazing. Is like crazy. Incredible. To see all of the collaborations that have come out of it, like comic books and like coffee and like all of these things, like all of this different kind of branding, this universe emerging from Bored Apes is incredible. And now you see, you know, a lot of like celebrities, like NBA stars also have apes. And it is like, it is like a little bit crazy to think about because it's like, you know, does it just keep going up? You know, is there like, what is like the end story or what's like the end game for all of this? But I will say that it is definitely because of how solid the Bored Ape community is. And just a little bit of like NFT oral history. One of the ways in which people found out about Bored Apes originally actually was through the Discord servers for Top Shot. So all of these things are like interconnected in their own strange way. But I'm very, very bullish on NFTs. I think art is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of like super interesting, I think, identity, business, whatever you might have it, use cases facilitated by this technology that you know, where these things wouldn't have been possible before. And even more interestingly, like you've mentioned, Ian, on the IC, all of these assets can be hosted on chain. So
Yeah.
like think about it, like 1,000 years from now, historians, they'll be able to look on chain. And when it comes to NFTs, they'll see like the asset exactly as it was without any kind of physical degradation. And of course, there's already digital art outside of NFTs, but they'll be able to see, you know, a history of like, where did this come from? Who's bought it? Who's held it? Where has it been? And that's just like, I mean, that's just like, I don't know, for me, just like, I'm just like literally speechless. Like even thinking about how all of this will be perceived like 1,000 or 2,000 years down the line.
Yeah. You know, Andrew Weed put in, you know, do your own research and you're never gambling. And I agree with Andrew. You know, there's all sorts of amazing companies that are helping you to do research. Like one I'm super excited about is called Keek. And so, you know, Keek will help you do research and basically partner with you in that. But I want to mention something about research. You know, I live in the San Francisco Bay. I live in a treehouse in the forest in Santa Cruz. And my family's lived in that area for 10 generations. My ancestor founded the city of San Jose. And so, you know, when I'm in San Francisco, I'm in the city, like it feels like it's my home. Like it's where my family has raised people and built businesses. I've always talked about Lieutenant Moraga, right? The founder of the San Francisco Presidio. That's my ancestor, like the first great entrepreneur of the Silicon Valley. And I think about, you know, this place, and I am heartbroken over the homelessness that's there. And so I've gotten involved with some of the different homeless nonprofits, and I'm even more excited about some of the, you know, traditional, you know, companies that are doing something to help these homeless people from a more business standpoint. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is there's not a problem with homelessness. Homeless people aren't homeless because they can't get housing. Homeless people are homeless because they're disconnected from community. You see, if a homeless person was connected to their family, their friends, most likely there's a couch, there's a room for them. And so just like disconnection from community can lead to drug addiction, bad decisions, jail, homelessness, disconnection from community in the Web3 ecosystem can lead to not doing appropriate research, making really bad decisions, getting burned. And so if you really want to protect yourself, yes, you can use Keek, you can use all these different types of amazing tools that will help you do research and make good decisions on what type of projects you want to be involved in. You can jump in Discord and have digital community and jump in Telegram and Signal and WhatsApp. That's fine. And that's cool. And that is community. But are you having human connection? Is it just a tweet? Or is it human connection? Because human connection and true intimate community will always benefit a life. And it benefits a life not to be homeless, and it benefits somebody in the decentralized Web3 ecosystem to be protected from some of the nefarious things that will come and go in our environment. So I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, I really loved what you said just now. And I think also disconnection from community is what leads to bad actors in these ecosystems, right? Like, for example, I've done moderation for like various crypto, you know, Discord servers. And of course, invariably, you get people who are like, hey, why don't you transfer me ETH or whatever, and I'll transfer you my NFT, like for sure, like why go to OpenSea, you know, all the fees and whatever it might be. And it's like, I mean, the honest truth is that obviously they didn't feel like they were part of the social fabric of the community because like
Yeah.
no person who like wholeheartedly contributes to a community would ever act in that sort of like self-interested way. So
Yeah.
one thing that I think is very clear to me, like in this modern world, a lot of people, you know, who work these white collar jobs, they live in cities. And the cities are a result of the industrial revolution, right? Like people leaving like an agrarian community where like people are interdependent upon one another, and then moving to the city where they work for like a corporation, work for a factory, whatever it might be. And I think the great irony of living in a city, and maybe that's why you live in a treehouse with your kids, the great irony of living in a city is that you're surrounded by millions of people, all this activity, the best restaurants, all of these things. And yet it's really easy, I think, for people to feel disconnected and isolated. You know, you're not with your family. Like you have no, like, I think in the past, like a lot of societies had religion as like the binding force within society. I think that's like much less prevalent, at least like in San Francisco where I live. So people have this void inside of them, right? Because we're like social animals and we seek connection. And that's one of the beautiful things I find about crypto, how it's possible to make friends. I've made friends with like a non-cartoon profile photos. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you live, but somehow, somewhere we have this like human connection. And I feel for you just like human to human. And we're bound by this like optimism for a technology that hopefully will change the world for the better. So I'm also getting emotional now, Ian. It's you and me, you and me both. So I will close with one question, and we'll see if we have any questions from the community. So I think, Ian, what's unique about you being in your position is that you have this bird's eye view of NFTs across a bunch of different ecosystems, right? Like mostly people are really familiar with NFTs on Ethereum, but you know, I know that you have met like Charles Hoskinson and you've like looked at NFTs on Cardano, on Solana, on Tezos, you know, all of these like what we could call alternative ecosystems. So what do you think is unique about the IC NFT ecosystem compared to everything else that you've seen? If anything, you know, not trying to put words in your mouth.
Well, there's a lot of things that are unique.
Okay.
Okay. Sometimes when I encourage people think I'm just full of it. You, Liz, are super unique.
Oh,
So
I'm an NFT. I'm a non-fungible human.
you make DFINITY unique because there is no one like you,
Oh
and
my
there's
God.
nothing like you, and there's nothing like community conversations.
Oh, thank
And
you. That's very
your
kind.
and your involvement in helping to capitalize the DFINITY Foundation, the grant program. So you're not just like a part of a networking group, but like you actually got the resources so that you can build the relationships so that you can distribute the funds to build. That makes DFINITY so unique. You specifically, community conversations, what you've done, what you're doing, your grant program is unique. Like your ability to provide $5,000 or $25,000 with $100,000 follow-up, no equity, no demands, just trying to perpetuate. I think you just announced that you released over $2 million. It's 100 startups and it's 2 million.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
can't
do
remember the
have
number.
to, yeah, totally. I
You
do
have
have
to
to
end.
say
So
that, you know, that's my colleague
go ahead.
Alexa on the grant side. So she's on the
Great.
call. Shout out to Alexa.
Shout out to Alexa. But the
Yeah.
whole point is that you and Alexa and all of your peers, but I really do think that what you do here is unique. So that's different. I haven't seen like the ease of use with understanding grant programs. You were telling me about a hackathon. I was looking through your documentation that you had for
Really.
that, and I'm like, this is unique. Like this is a really, really cool pursuit. Or what you're doing with Iconic, right? You're not
Yeah.
bringing
Yeah.
dystopic artwork. You're bringing optimistic, hopeful, colorful artwork.
Really.
Unique. I think that obviously your leadership, you know, everyone that's involved in the development to get here, they obviously bring their DNA into it. But I look at the people that have been attracted to it. It's like when I spend time with Abraham Gomez and the Wild and West team, or Bob and the Tonic
Right.
team, I'm like, okay, these guys are they have a unique flavor to them, and they're working on projects in a different way. And there's a collaboration and an excitement about the community and the success and the technology. So everybody's unique, but I think I'm attracted, whether other people are or not, doesn't matter. I am magnetized to this environment because of all these factors that make Dfinity and the IC NFT environment one of one.
Yeah, that's well, first of all, I'm like the type of person who's very embarrassed by compliments. So thank you. So thank you so much for that. But certainly, you know, I feel, like I mentioned before, super lucky to be able to work with my colleagues who are all one of ones. I see a bunch of them on this call right now, like Anna and like Maddie, and, you know, I see Ryan and so on and so forth. And it is just such a pleasure, I think, to be able to work with these like wonderful humans. And we all believe in this, like, we all have this like hope for a better future. And they're just like cool people to begin with. And on top of that, we have like such a lively and wonderful community, Ian, of which you're also a member. So it is like, I don't know, it is like I have to like pinch myself sometimes, because I feel like I'm in a dream. Like all of my friends are like, they're like, oh, I hate my job. You know, it's like a 9 to 5. It's like such a grind and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to be like a downer on these like conversations, but I don't hate my job at all. And I think this is just the beginning. And that's what I hope for everyone, you know, on this call or like watching after this call, is that I hope that everyone finds that. I think everyone needs that like purpose in their life, whatever it might be. And there's like, depending on the role that you play in different contexts, of course, there's like different purposes that you serve. But yeah, it's the humanity that I think connects us all in this crypto world, this weird, wonderful crypto industry that we're all a part of. And I am so incredibly hopeful for the future. I'm getting emotional again, by the way. This is all your fault, Ian.
You are welcome. You're welcome. It's been said, obviously, and most of us have heard this, you can live without food for 40 days or water for a few days, or air, right, or air for a couple minutes, but you can't live without hope.
Yeah, totally.
We need to recognize the importance of courage. So, you know, I gave the disclaimer. A lot of times people listen to me encourage and they're like, this guy's like blowing smoke. And I'm not. Like, I genuinely meant what I said. And you even said, like, you don't like to be encouraged. I kind of share the same thing. I'm like, I'm not looking for people to pat me on the head and, you know, slap me on the ass. But ultimately,
right,
what is the definition of encouragement? It is to put courage inside somebody's soul. What is the drive to have hope? Well, if you have courage, like, what is Batman's superpower? Courage, right? Batman
having a lot of money for weapons.
I mean, but ultimately, he still had to put those weapons on and go fight. And so there's courage and hope, and those things work hand in hand. So I was full of hope. I did generally get emotional a couple of times in our call. I'm like, is a tear gonna fall out of my eye right now?
It's like, honestly, it's like a beautiful thing. And Ian, you know, I just want to be cognizant of time, of your time, of everyone's time on this call. We could definitely talk for hours. We'll continue the conversation in person at NFT.NYC. But thank you so much for all of your insights, for sharing your story, for being a part of this conversation. Thank you to our wonderful community for your comments. I know we didn't get to the live Q&A. If you have any questions for Ian and myself, just tweet at us on Twitter. You'll know where to find us. And I will see you all next time, and hopefully at the iconic NFT art exhibit. Thanks again, Ian. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.